As the morning sun cast golden light over the tall buildings of the city, Emily stood by her window. Down below, the streets were bustling with cars, people rushing to their offices, and the occasional faint sound of construction work. It was just another typical morning in the city.
Emily, hurry up or you'll be late for the meeting.
Grace's teasing voice called out from the kitchen.
I'm not in the mood for today's meeting.
Emily said, glancing at the clock.
And I'll have to deal with Ryan's extremely calm demeanor again.
Ryan, who was sitting on the couch in the living room, raised an eyebrow.
Is my demeanor a problem?
Emily smiled and shook her head.
It's just so serious. If you were a bit more spontaneous, like Grace or Jake, maybe we'd have some fun.
Ryan chuckled, shaking his head.
You know me, Emily. I'm not spontaneous. I plan everything.
Grace emerged from the kitchen with a coffee cup in hand.
You two are so predictable. What if the three of us went out today without any plans? Completely spontaneous.
Emily laughed.
That's actually a good idea.
But as time passed, a subtle change began to unfold. The old laughter and conversations between Emily and Ryan felt strained, as if everything was being forced, like there was some unspoken tension between them. As the weeks went by, an invisible gap began to form in Emily and Ryan's relationship. They still loved each other, but something had changed. The old spark seemed to have faded, and their conversations often ended abruptly. One evening, as they sat on their apartment balcony, the city lights twinkling and rain falling outside, Ryan looked at Emily and spoke.
Em, have you noticed? Something has changed between us.
His voice carried a soft concern. Emily turned to him and said,
Yes, I've noticed. It feels like we're drifting apart, doesn't it?
Ryan stopped for a while before replying.
I don't want this to happen. But it feels like we don't understand each other anymore, like there's a kind of silence between us.
Emily looked up at him and said,
I feel the same way, Ryan. But everything feels so mechanical now, like we're just going through the motions without really sharing anything.
The complex noises of the city buzzed outside, but their relationship felt stuck, trapped in a place where even words were hesitant to be spoken. In the days that followed, a deeper silence settled between Emily and Ryan. Though they were still physically close, they struggled to truly connect or understand each other. One day, Emily decided to visit Grace. She needed some space from Ryan, though she knew her heart still belonged to him. As she entered Grace's apartment, she heard her favorite jazz music playing softly in the background, filling the room with a soothing vibe.
Emily, you look absolutely lifeless. What's going on?
I don't know, Grace. We're just not understanding each other anymore, Ryan and I. It feels like we're living in two completely different worlds.
Grace sat beside her and said,
It sounds like you're both losing each other. Relationships aren't easy, but if you both want it, there's a way back. But for that, you need to talk. Something you don't seem to be doing right now.
The days passed, but nothing changed. Emily and Ryan stayed beside each other, yet the deep cracks in their relationship had become unmistakable. Something needed to be said, but neither had the courage to speak. Both knew something had gone wrong between them, but they couldn't find a way to fix it. One evening, the sky was overcast, and rain poured over the city streets. Emily stood by the window of their apartment, watching as people passed each other outside, yet inside she felt no peace. A hollow emptiness had formed within her, one that could never be filled again. Ryan walked into the room, rain dripping from his clothes. He held a bag in his hand, his eyes filled with a kind of weariness. He wanted to say something, but the words seemed stuck.
Emily, do you think we can still stay together?
Emily looked at him, but there was no anger in her eyes, only loneliness.
Do you think we even understand each other anymore? I feel like we've grown so far apart that nothing matters anymore.
Ryan lowered his head, remaining silent. Even in each other's presence, they felt like they were losing one another. It seemed as though the end of their relationship had arrived.
What do you want, Ryan?
Emily asked quietly.
Are we just hurting each other by staying together?
Ryan paused for a moment before responding.
I don't know, but maybe it's time for us to walk separate paths.
Emily closed her eyes and stood still. As much as they had once loved each other, there was now just as much frustration and disappointment. This relationship, which had once been the center of their lives, had now become a burden they could no longer carry. Both Emily and Ryan knew that their relationship was coming to an end. Despite how much they loved each other, that love no longer held any meaning. They lacked the strength to speak. Even when they looked into each other's eyes, they could see there was nothing left between them. Still, it was hard to accept. There was discomfort, a sense of fear, but in the end, they had to acknowledge that separation was the only way forward. One evening, Ryan decided to leave with his bag in hand. Amidst the sound of rain, he was ready to walk toward a new path in his life. His feet moved over the slippery streets as if the world had come to a standstill. For a moment, he turned back to look at Emily.
Goodbye, Emily.
Ryan said. Emily didn't respond. Tears streamed down her face, but she couldn't hold herself together. Something deep inside her was breaking.
Goodbye, Ryan.
She finally said, her voice carrying a quiet acceptance. There was no hope left, only an overwhelming emptiness. Ryan stepped forward and opened the door, leaving the house behind. Emily knew he would never return. Not in a moment, not in a lifetime. The city sounds rose again, but Emily was alone in the midst of it all. Her tears wouldn't stop, and she felt as though solitude had become her only companion. The next morning, Emily stood by the window, watching the wet city streets and the people walking by. After Ryan's departure, the city remained the same, but Emily's world had completely changed. She knew Ryan had been a part of her life, but now he was just a memory. Visiting Grace, she said.
It's over, Grace. We don't love each other anymore. Maybe we were never meant for each other.
Grace hugged her tightly.
I know, Emily. But you know, your life will keep moving. You can't let yourself be alone forever. It's time to rediscover this city.
Emily gave a faint smile, but there was a sadness in her eyes. After Ryan left, she was trying to piece her life back together, but the wound inside her heart would always remain. Ryan's departure had created an emptiness, but his memory lingered. Those moments of love, those shared times, that laughter would never return. But Emily knew she could never forget Ryan. She had to move forward, but she would never erase his memory. Emily knew that her life would never be the same after Ryan left. Their relationship had come to a halt, yet the traces of memories kept growing stronger. The rain had stopped, but an invisible sorrow continued to pour in Emily's heart, refusing to cease. The bustling city streets, the noise of traffic, everything felt more distant than ever. One night, she sat by the window. Darkness had fallen outside, and the streetlights glowed coldly and monotonously. Emily took a deep breath and looked within herself. Ryan's presence still lingered in her heart, but she knew that everything had truly ended after their last meeting. When Grace sat a day beside her, Emily didn't say a word about how she was feeling. Grace's face held a kind of sympathy, but her eyes carried a glimmer of reassurance.
You know, Emily, it's just a matter of time. At first, it feels like the world has stopped, but eventually a new sun will rise.
Emily nodded and said,
Maybe. But right now, I feel like I need to be alone. I need to find myself again.
Grace smiled softly.
Yes, exactly. You needed this to start a new chapter in your life.
Days rolled by, but Emily was trying to give her life a new shape. She spent a lot of time in quiet corners of the city, sitting in its renowned cafes, reading books and sipping tea alone. Yet, there was something within her, something that was teaching her to see the world in a new light instead of being lost in Ryan's memories. She wanted to embrace life anew. One day, Emily visited an art gallery. As she admired the creative works there, a newfound spark of joy gleamed in her eyes. For the first time, she realized that the void left by the end of a relationship could also be an opportunity for a fresh start. Just like the paintings in the gallery, one by one, new chapters of her life began to unfold. At that moment, her phone rang. It was Grace.
Emily, I know how you feel, but you also know that moving forward in life can help you step out of the shadows of certain emotions.
Emily smiled and said,
Yes, I can see it more clearly now. It's time for me to truly get to know myself and start something new.
Sometimes Emily thought of Ryan, but there was no sadness or resentment in her heart. She knew their journey together had come to an end, and she had found a sense of peace within that farewell. One day, while walking in the park, Emily stopped at an old spot where she and Ryan used to sit together for hours. She remembered those moments, Ryan's laughter, his words, and the echoes of their shared memories still lingered in her mind. But now, she knew there was no need to cry over them anymore. For a brief moment, she felt a lump in her throat. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but it was a tear of goodbye, a tear of release. She knew she no longer needed to return to Ryan, but the memories of their shared life and love would always stay in her heart.
Goodbye, Ryan.
She said to herself.
Thank you for teaching me so much.
Emily realized she had to find herself now. She had to walk the path of life alone, but she hoped that even on this path, she would discover something new. She was no longer truly alone. She had found herself. Emily once believed her world had ended when her relationship with Ryan fell apart. But in loss, she found an unexpected victory, a chance to rediscover herself. One crisp winter morning, Emily walked through the city park, stopping at a bench where she and Ryan once sat today for hours. The memories of his laughter and their shared moments lingered, but this time they didn't bring her pain. A single tear rolled down her cheek, a farewell not to love, but to the life she had outgrown. In the following weeks, Emily leaned on her friend Grace, who encouraged her to embrace the changes.
You're finding yourself again.
Grace said, and Emily felt it too. She began to revisit her childhood dreams and enrolled in an art class. Stepping into the studio for the first time was nerve-wracking, but Samuel, her instructor, saw her potential.
There's so much within you waiting to be painted.
He said, igniting a spark. Emily poured her emotions onto the canvas, each brushstroke a step toward healing. When she completed her first painting, she realized her life wasn't losing its color. It was gaining new shades.
Your work is remarkable, Emily.
Samuel told her one day. Emily smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't known before.
Maybe this is what I've been searching for all along, myself.
And with every painting, every step forward, Emily reclaimed the life she was meant to live, one vibrant hue at a time. Friends, if you have had such a sad or happy day in your life, and you want to share it with others, then you can send it to the email given in the description box. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales.